Last night, approximately 1.5 billion people on Earth had dreams they will not remember by morning. Their brains generated hours of vivid, emotional experiences that felt completely real while they happened, then vanished almost instantly after waking. Gone. As if they never existed at all. But some dreams do not vanish. Some dreams leave scars. Right now, across clinical databases in 12 countries, there are more than 40,000 documented reports describing the same dream experience. Not similar dreams. The same dream. Gray figures standing motionless beside the bed, complete paralysis, a voice that does not use sound. A message delivered directly into the mind without language, as if information itself were being downloaded. And immediately before waking, one final image shown with impossible clarity. Earth. Burning. The reports come from children in rural Japan, farmers in Argentina, software engineers in Finland, people who have never met, never communicated, and never consumed the same media. Different cultures, different languages, different decades. Yet they describe the same experience with extraordinary precision. One account can be dismissed. 100 accounts can be dismissed. But when the number reaches 40,000, and the details remain consistent across every variable that should create variation, coincidence becomes increasingly difficult to defend. At that point, the pattern begins to resemble a signal. What if the most sophisticated communication technology in existence does not use radio waves? What if it does not use light, electromagnetic transmission, or any frequency humanity has ever attempted to monitor? What if it uses the one receiver that activates naturally every single night? The human mind during sleep. What if non-human intelligence has attempted communication for thousands of years, and humanity has dismissed every message as a dream? What if every nightmare was actually a failed contact attempt? To understand that possibility, it becomes necessary to begin with what neuroscience already knows about dreams, and what neuroscience still cannot explain. During REM sleep, the brain enters a highly unusual state. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic, skepticism, and critical evaluation, becomes dramatically less active. At the same time, the visual cortex, emotional systems, and memory processing regions become intensely active. The result is a state where vivid emotional experiences can unfold without the normal ability to question whether those experiences are real. Every night, the human brain enters a condition of maximum receptivity combined with minimum filtering. Neuroscience understands much of the mechanism itself. Researchers know which neurotransmitters activate. They know which brain regions change state. But there is still no universally accepted explanation for why the brain evolved to function this way at all. Why deliberately suspend critical thinking while amplifying emotional and experiential processing? The standard explanation is memory consolidation. The brain sorts experiences and stores information gathered during the day. But memory consolidation does not require elaborate narratives. It does not require emotionally overwhelming dream sequences involving impossible environments, entities, or catastrophes. You do not need dreams about running through burning buildings in order to remember a meeting that happened on Tuesday afternoon. The complexity of dreams vastly exceeds any ordinary maintenance function. Which raises another possibility. What if the complexity was never intended for us alone? Consider the problem from the perspective of a non-human intelligence attempting communication with humanity. You discover a species with primitive technology. Their instruments can detect only a tiny portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. They have been using radio communication for barely a century. Most of reality remains completely invisible to them. But every night, every individual on the planet enters a neurological state where mental defenses collapse. pattern recognition increases. Emotional receptivity intensifies. The ability to distinguish between internal and external input weakens dramatically. For approximately 2 hours each night, 8 billion minds become highly receptive receivers. If you were attempting communication with such a species, why would you choose radio waves at all when a direct opening already exists inside consciousness itself? The clinical literature surrounding anomalous dream experiences is far larger than most people realize, and the patterns inside those reports become deeply unsettling when viewed collectively. Dr. Simon Sherwood at the University of Northampton conducted one of the largest meta-analyses of anomalous dream reports ever assembled. Across multiple peer-reviewed papers, he documented recurring details appearing with statistical consistency across unrelated cultures and populations. The paralysis. Reported in 83% of anomalous contact dreams, not ordinary dream paralysis where movement feels difficult. Complete immobilization, combined with awareness of the physical bedroom itself, awareness of the body lying in bed, awareness of a presence existing somewhere between dreaming and waking. The figures. Gray or dark humanoid forms with proportions that feel almost human but subtly wrong, large heads, minimal features. Descriptions triggering what psychologists call the uncanny valley response. The same figures appear repeatedly across thousands of years of recorded human history. Ancient Egyptian accounts, medieval European reports, modern clinical studies. 5,000 years of consistency. Then the communication itself. Not spoken language, not visual symbols. Subjects consistently describe the experience as immediate knowing, information arriving directly in the mind without passing through ordinary senses. Neuroimaging studies of people reporting these experiences show activity patterns in the temporal lobe associated with information processing, but without corresponding activation in sensory regions responsible for sight or hearing. The brain processes information, but the information does not appear to arrive through any recognized sensory channel. That raises a difficult question. Where is the signal coming from? Now the most disturbing part. The messages themselves. Dr. John Mack at Harvard documented approximately 200 contact experience cases, many occurring during sleep or hypnagogic states between waking and dreaming. 70% of subjects independently reported receiving the same core message. Not verbally, experientially. Subjects describe being shown Earth from above, environmental destruction, possible future timelines. A moment where human decisions appeared to determine one of two outcomes. Specific details varied. The structure remained identical across 200 unrelated individuals over 15 years. And Mack's work exists within a much larger pattern. In 2002, researchers at the University of Virginia Division of Perceptual Studies quietly began cataloging what they called consensus dream content. Dreams reported by unrelated individuals containing identical specific details. Not vague archetypes, not generalized symbols. Specific locations. Specific structures. Specific sequences of events matching across accounts from people who had never met one another. By 2010, researchers had identified more than 300 consensus dream clusters. Groups of people across the world reporting the same detailed dream during the same time period. The same room, the same symbols, the same sequence, the same message. One cluster from 2004 involved 17 individuals across 9 countries who all described standing inside a circular room with no visible walls while observing a rotating geometric symbol none of them recognized. All 17 later drew the same symbol independently. None had any connection to one another. None had encountered the symbol before. Either human beings spontaneously generate identical, unfamiliar geometric structures simultaneously across continents and cultures, or something is transmitting information directly into consciousness itself. Now it becomes necessary to examine why the standard sleep paralysis explanation does not fully account for these reports. Sleep paralysis is real. During REM sleep, the brain temporarily suppresses voluntary muscle movement to prevent people from physically acting out dreams. Occasionally, a person regains awareness before the paralysis fully releases, creating the terrifying sensation of being awake but unable to move. The medical community generally attributes anomalous nighttime experiences to this mechanism, but that explanation contains several major problems. The first problem involves information transfer. Conventional sleep paralysis produces fear, chest pressure, and shadowy figures. It does not reliably produce complex structured messages about timelines, environmental collapse, or specific geometric symbols later reproduced identically by unrelated individuals. The anomalous contact experiences contain organized, repeatable content that ordinary sleep paralysis has never generated under controlled laboratory conditions. The second problem involves clustering. Sleep paralysis occurs randomly across populations. Contact dream reports do not. Researchers at the Rhine Research Center documented statistically significant increases in anomalous dream reports during periods preceding major world events, including September 11th, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, and the Fukushima disaster. Not dreams specifically depicting those events. Instead, dreams containing the same recurring structure: paralysis, figures, telepathic communication, images involving Earth itself, almost as if the signal intensified before moments of large-scale crisis. The third problem may be the most important. Sleep paralysis normally occurs during the transition between sleep and waking consciousness. The contact experiences do not. Neuroimaging studies of subjects reporting these encounters show activity patterns associated with the deepest phases of REM sleep itself, precisely when the brain becomes most disconnected from external sensory input and the prefrontal cortex becomes least active. The experiences occur during the exact window of maximum neurological receptivity, as if whatever transmits the signal understands exactly when the receiver becomes most open. Now the discussion reaches something even stranger. DMT. Dimethyltryptamine is a naturally occurring compound produced by the human brain during REM sleep. It is also one of the most powerful psychoactive substances known to science. And when administered in controlled clinical settings, it produces experiences that have deeply unsettled researchers for decades. Dr. Rick Strassman at the University of New Mexico conducted the first federally approved DMT research program in the United States between 1990 and 1995. 60 volunteers received measured doses in hospital environments under controlled observation. More than half of the participants independently reported encounters with non-human intelligent entities, not abstract hallucinations, not distorted versions of familiar objects. Entities. Beings described as possessing autonomous intelligence, awareness of the participants, thoughts, and the ability to communicate information subjects considered genuinely novel rather than retrieved from memory. The descriptions showed remarkable consistency across participants. Gray or translucent figures, communication bypassing spoken language, information delivered directly into awareness. Many participants described being told that this channel of contact had always existed, but humanity had forgotten how to access it. Dr. Strassman himself remained cautious in his conclusions, but even his cautious interpretation was extraordinary. He proposed that DMT might function less like a hallucination generator and more like a tuning mechanism, a chemical allowing consciousness to perceive a layer of reality normally inaccessible during waking life. And the human brain naturally produces this compound every night during REM sleep, exactly when anomalous contact dreams occur most frequently. Consider the implications carefully. The brain manufactures a compound that, in controlled clinical settings, repeatedly produces encounters with apparently intelligent non-human entities. That compound peaks during the exact sleep phase associated with contact dreams, and neuroscience still cannot fully explain why the brain produces it at all. No established model of memory consolidation or neural maintenance requires this mechanism, which raises another possibility entirely. What if DMT is not a byproduct of sleep? What if sleep itself functions as a delivery system for DMT? And what if the architecture of human sleep, paralysis, prefrontal shutdown, sensory isolation, DMT release, exists because it creates a temporary communication window? A nightly period when billions of human minds become accessible to something operating on frequencies consciousness can detect, but machines cannot. Ancient cultures did not struggle with these ideas the way modern society does. In ancient Egypt, sleep was described as the little death, and dreams were treated as messages from the Neteru, beings believed to exist in a reality overlapping with but distinct from the physical world. Temples employed professional dream interpreters whose role was not psychological analysis. They acted as translators, mediators between human consciousness and non-human intelligence, using dreams as a communication system. In ancient Greece, healing temples known as Asclepions required patients to sleep inside sacred chambers. Healing was believed to occur through dream encounters with entities that diagnosed illness and provided treatment during sleep itself. The practice continued for more than 800 years, long enough to suggest people repeatedly experienced results, convincing enough to sustain the institution across centuries. Aboriginal Australian traditions describe the dreamtime not as a mythological past, but as an ongoing parallel reality accessible through altered states and sleep. The beings encountered there are described as creators of the physical world who continue communicating with humanity through dreams. These traditions stretch back more than 50,000 years, making them among the oldest continuous cultural frameworks on Earth. Hindu and Buddhist traditions also describe sleep as a thinning of the boundary between levels of consciousness, allowing access to beings and information filtered out during ordinary waking awareness. Across cultures separated by oceans and millennia, the conclusion remained remarkably consistent. Sleep is not unconsciousness. Sleep is another form of consciousness entirely, one capable of receiving information the waking mind cannot normally access. Modern science dismissed these beliefs as superstition. But modern science still cannot explain why 40,000 people across 12 countries continue reporting the same dream. Now the discussion reaches what researchers call the frequency shift. Because according to the dream reports, the nature of the messages has begun changing. For decades, most anomalous contact dreams followed a largely observational pattern. Subjects described being shown things: Earth from above, environmental collapse, future possibilities, consequences. The communication flowed one direction only: observe, learn, remember. Around 2012, researchers began documenting a change. Subjects increasingly reported interactive experiences instead of passive observation. They described being questioned, evaluated, tested, as if the communication itself had shifted from broadcast into dialogue, from lecture into interview. Then, beginning around 2020, another element appeared with increasing frequency. Subjects described receiving the same wordless message repeatedly. A threshold is approaching. Not extinction, not catastrophe. A shift. A change in human consciousness itself that would eventually make the dream channel unnecessary. The entities are not warning that something is arriving. They are suggesting humanity itself is changing into something capable of hearing them continuously. Consider the implications carefully. Right now, the only reliable contact window appears to be sleep. 2 hours each night filtered through dream imagery, distorted by the brain attempting to translate unfamiliar information into recognizable human symbols. The signal reaches consciousness, but only partially, fragmented, emotional, often forgotten immediately after waking. But what happens if the filter disappears permanently? What happens if human consciousness evolves toward a state where communication no longer requires REM sleep, paralysis, or DMT-driven altered states? What happens if billions of people suddenly become aware of a signal that has existed longer than civilization itself? The dreams may not simply be messages. They may be preparation. Every contact dream, every paralysis encounter, every nightmare carrying structured information. Training for a moment when the communication channel fully opens. And whatever has whispered through dreams for thousands of years finally speaks directly. Tonight, approximately 1.5 billion people will enter REM sleep. Their prefrontal cortex will become quiet, DMT levels will rise, consciousness will enter a state of maximum receptivity with minimum filtering. And some of them, far more than most people would ever believe, will encounter something in the darkness. Something aware of them. Something carrying a message. Most will wake remembering almost nothing, only a vague unease. A feeling that something important happened beyond the edge of memory. But some will remember clearly. And what they remember will match the reports already documented by 40,000 others before them. The same room, the same figures, the same wordless message. The signal is broadcasting. It may have been broadcasting longer than human civilization itself. And the only receiver capable of detecting it may be the one activated every time human beings close their eyes. If the possibility that dreams function as a communication channel has changed the way you think about consciousness itself, there are other directions worth exploring. One possibility is that non-human intelligence may already interact directly with human awareness through mechanisms we barely understand. Another possibility is that beings existing outside ordinary time may already know how individual human lives unfold from beginning to end. Both ideas connect directly to what appears inside the dream reports. Pay attention to your dreams tonight. Not only the images. Pay attention to the feeling that something important happened just beyond memory. Because if 40,000 matching reports are not enough to suggest something is transmitting information through sleep, then perhaps tonight you become report number 40,001. Approximately 1.5 billion people will enter REM sleep tonight. Their logical defenses will lower. Their consciousness will become highly receptive. Their minds will enter the same neurological state where these experiences continue appearing again and again across the world. Most will wake remembering almost nothing. But some will remember enough. Enough to describe the same room, the same figures, the same message. The signal may have been broadcasting longer than human civilization itself. And every night, humanity continues tuning in without realizing it. Sweet dreams. Something may already be listening,